I'm driving a white Ford Bronco on the 405. I'm such a weirdo. This is my grandpa Phil right here.
Hi, Tyler.
And he's a big USC fan, which is where OJ played, obviously, got his Heisman. So you followed him from the beginning.
The guy was there, right?
Oh, wow. So what year was that?
This was about a year before the big event.
Welcome to Hoovie's Garage, the dumbest automotive channel in all of YouTube, and I'm on a family vacation in Los Angeles and decided after all the heat with my electric Ford Lightning that I should buy myself a less controversial Ford, and that's this 1994 Ford Bronco that looks a lot like the O.J. Simpson infamous Ford Bronco. No, this isn't the car. It's actually a little bit different in a few ways, but the last time the real O.J. Bronco popped up for sale, it was over $1 million. Now, there were actually two Ford Broncos used in this O.J. saga, probably because O.J. worked for Hertz as their spokesperson for many years, for decades. So there were two identical Broncos. His personal Bronco that was seized as evidence, and then the pursuit Bronco that was owned by his friend. But this thing was used to give O.J. themed tours throughout Los Angeles, so it's actually been to this site many times. 360 North Rockingham Avenue, the former address of O.J. Simpson. His home is long gone, but this is where the pursuit ended in 1994, which for those of you that weren't born yet when this all went down, O.J. Simpson was a Heisman Trophy winner football player turned Hollywood actor. He's in The Naked Gun, very funny in that, but not funny at all was his wife and her boyfriend or so getting murdered in June of 1994, and O.J. was the only and prime suspect. His car was parked on the street, a Bronco just like this with blood on the door handle, blood inside. O.J. said he had cut his finger, but then a warrant went out for his arrest. It was a very, very grisly murder, and O.J. was the only person with the motive to do something like that, so the police instructed him to turn himself in through his lawyers. One of them was Rob Kardashian, yes, the Kardashians' dad, and well, he didn't. Apparently he was suicidal. He wrote a bunch of notes to his kids saying he was going to kill himself and such, changed his will, and went on a low-speed pursuit with O.J. in the back seat, and actually his friend Al Cowlings driving at a very, very low rate of speed. It was nationally televised. Everybody knew where they were when the O.J. chase happened. They were glued to the television watching the trial. It was televised, and it basically launched the entire true crime genre that we all live in today, where every single murder is kind of made into a TV show, miniseries. There's been many documentaries and TV shows on this subject, but he was found not guilty in criminal court, but guilty in a civil court. He got arrested later for armed robbery over some memorabilia, served some time in prison for that, but now he is out living in Florida. But some say he got away with this murder, especially with all the evidence, some of which was thrown out here because the police didn't have a search warrant when they jumped the fence. They saw the blood on the Bronco, worried something was wrong, somebody was hurt, and jumped the fence. And all that evidence that they found here was deemed inadmissible because they didn't have a warrant. Now, I don't remember exactly where I was when the O.J. chase happened, but I do remember seeing the chase and thinking the Bronco looked pretty darn cool. And now I own this one. I bought it on Cars and Bids for $13,000, a little over 100,000 miles, a very nice rust-free California car. Really hard to find a Bronco in this condition in anywhere but California. Texas, they're all dried out. So they're rust-free, but the paint's begged, the interior's ruined. Same goes for Florida. They've melted from the sun. It's only in California where you can get a nice rust-free and nicely preserved original example like this. But I am trusting a nearly 30-year-old Bronco for a family vacation all the way to San Diego, and it certainly does have some issues. But first I'm going to take it on a little bit of a test drive to some of the spots that O.J. went around on those infamous few days during the murder and afterwards, and then I'll give you a tour of this Bronco, and hopefully it lasts through this vacation. I know this is a really weird Hoovie's Garage sort of Halloween special, but before we go, I should note that O.J.'s house, he came back and lived here briefly after he was acquitted, but then moved away. The house was so infamous and such a big tourist trap that it was torn down. So all you have is the address and the lot. The house is completely gone. Apparently they found a buried knife in the yard, which once again couldn't be used as evidence, and he was already acquitted for murder, so they couldn't try him again with any new evidence. But yeah, he had good taste in cars. Ah, yes. An old school full-size Bronco. Of course, when the Bronco came out in the 1960s, it was more of a smaller, more Jeep-like off-roader. But then Chevy came out with the K5 Blazer, which was much larger, more comfortable, more usable and practical, but also very good off-road. And Ford had lost so many sales to the Blazer that when they decided to refresh the Ford Bronco, they did it on the full-size truck platform. So basically the F-Series, and that's what we have right here. It lasted a really long time, from the mid to late 70s until the mid to late 90s. They changed the nose a little bit, but otherwise the chassis itself, not much different. By the mid to late 90s, you could get a 5.8 liter V8 and then the 5.0, which is what this one has. The legendary 5.0 V8, which is pretty stout in these things. Man, this thing's wide and we're in narrow roads here. It's the transmission that is the weakest link, and this one, well, apparently it has a little bit of a finicky transmission. It also has a nice little rattle, suspension creak from the front left. I'll let you hear it a little better. Anyway, something's loose there. The steering wheel is not quite uneven, but you all saw my K5 Blazer sold for $30,000 at Barrett-Jackson. These things, including the Ford counterparts, are super hot right now. That car was a driver with, you know, an okay repaint, some rust repair. This thing is original paint and, well, completely rust-free its entire life. Needs some suspension work though. But it seems like it'll do the trip no problem. We're going to visit some really cool sites, including the Peterson Museum, see the Warhols brought in from Germany. When Mercedes celebrated their 100th anniversary, they commissioned Warhol to paint some of the iconic cars. So to see those paintings in person, along with the cars that he painted, super duper cool. And then I have an event at the new Mercedes Classic Center. Then I'll visit my grandparents living in Costa Mesa, then down to San Diego, where we may visit an old friend that I haven't seen since, well, before COVID. This thing definitely needs some work here and there, but overall seems solid enough for the trip. It's going to be 5 days, several hundred miles, and then we'll ship it back home to Kansas and really see what I got. But so far, I'm really happy with this thing. I could have done much worse. And now we're coming up on the next stop of this little morbid OJ tour of mine, where I'll give you a tour of this Bronco. Now we've arrived literally at the scene of the crime, 879 South Bundy Avenue. This is where Nicole Brown Simpson was living when she left her husband, OJ, and where she was murdered, unfortunately. Dang near decapitated, both arteries on both sides of the neck cut, several stab wounds, along with her friend Ron Goldman that was stabbed several times in the neck as well. Their bodies were discovered here, and the apartment, well, the townhome, still stands. This is a very morbid place to visit, obviously. This woman left behind kids that are probably traumatized for life, but hard to believe it was almost 30 years ago. And I'm not sure how to segue this into a tour of my Bronco, but you know, here it is, a beautiful California car. Like I said, this one has the four-wheel drive as an XLT, the lower trim package. The XLT was still very well equipped, but not the fancy one. This one still is four-wheel drive. You can see it has the manual locking hubs here, the correct 15-inch alloy wheels, and when you go underneath this thing, holy moly, is it clean. Wow. I mean, only in California can you get something like this. Just absolutely ridiculously clean. And you go around the truck, this is all original paint, and it is starting to chip away. Ford did have an issue with whites. You saw it on police cruisers where they would chip away here, but also on the back. The roof is removable in the rear. A few years ago when I had one of these, I was able to remove this all by myself by kind of picking it up like I was a giant turtle or something. I probably couldn't do it nowadays, but this is the only kind of bad part of the car. The rear tailgate, you can see the seal has kind of perished here, and the paint is starting to chip away. This trim piece, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it. It is cracked over here as well. I would love to replace that because otherwise the paint on this truck is really nice. You could repaint the tailgate, fix that, and you have a darn near mint example. So the price I paid, $13,000, if you told me that 5 years ago, I would think you're absolutely insane. But these things are so hot right now, the prices have absolutely exploded, and I feel like I got a great deal. Let's actually open up the tailgate here. You can see this latch mechanism pulls away the spare tire, and then you use the key, which has an interesting keychain. The glove did not fit, so he was acquitted. You can put the window down. Then you have a nice place to sit down, clean your bloody knife, take off your gloves, shrink them, I guess, in the sun, I'm not sure. But really nice, very spacious cabin, even though it is only a two-door vehicle. As you can see, the inside is a lot of no nonsense, a lot of plastic Ford, but the seats, do have kind of a cool rainbow multicolored design in them, and they're very, very soft and cushy, and also have an air bladder for lumbar. So that's a nice addition. You have a center console with cup holders. There's your four-wheel drive selection for the transfer case. You have air conditioning, aftermarket stereo, very simple gauges, and a very spacious back seat. Even cup holders and an ashtray for the rear passengers, including my 2-year-old son. Car seat fits really well in here. He has a great view of everything. It is the absolute perfect murder getaway vehicle and family vacation car. You can do anything. Let's get under the hood here, and well, it's a little bit dusty, but man, is it nice and clean. That Ford 5-liter with this iconic funky intake on it. Everything here looks very right and tidy. Thank goodness. I can't wait to see what Van Gogh back in Kansas will be able to do with this thing, detailing it. But for now, it is a super, super nice example. And before we continue on my vacation, I have one more thing I have to do. Getting a bit of that famous LA traffic, but there's the sign for the 405. This truck's actually really well suited for traffic. It's just comfy, nice cruiser, very land yachty. But of course, the 405 freeway is where millions and millions of people across the country watched a white Ford Bronco go very, very slowly with an entire fleet, basically what seemed like the entire LAPD behind it. I'm flooring it now. That's all she got. We're barely out accelerating a Prius, but they're probably not even trying. But here we are on the 405, going way, way faster than OJ and his driver ever did. Boy, that is quite a rattle as we get up to 65. But it'll do highway speeds. We gotta do a lot more of that to get down to San Diego, but there's a lot to see beforehand. But now, I'm driving a white Ford Bronco on the 405. I'm such a weirdo. Now it's time to pick up the family here. Yeah, we stayed overnight at the Beverly Hills Hotel, which is just absolutely incredible. A lot of movers and shakers have stayed here, and bumped into one of them this morning. It was Richard Rollins, Gas Monkey Garage. He's here. He's at the Peterson event last night, unveiling a carbon fiber body electric car that looks like a 67, 68 Mustang, over 1,000 horsepower all-wheel drive. But then, look at this. Cullinan, G-Wagon, a Genesis SUV as well that I think somebody confused for a Bentley. But anyway, now it's a 94 Ford Bronco. As soon as that pretty blue Aston gets out of the way. But we'll load up the family and start seeing the sights. The soundtrack is Cocomelon, Halloween themed. It's been going for a while. In traffic. Liam, say hi.
Hi.
It's Fangio's race car. It's about the most expensive cars in the world right here. One just sold for 100 million bucks. And it's surrounded by all the Warhols. So neat. Gullwing, of course. And then this is the exact car that I drove in Monterey for the upcoming Car Truck series. You'll see it soon, but now it's in the museum. And there's the Warhol. Well, this is one thing that's definitely changed in 30 years. The OJ chase could never happen in today's congestion and traffic. It would be this low speed. A police officer could walk up to the car and just open the door. Anyway, an hour and a half to go 30 miles to our next stop. Well, we're about halfway through our trip and the Bronco has been absolutely flawless. No problems other than the ones we started with. And now I'm in Orange County visiting my grandparents' house. This is my grandpa Phil right here.
Hi, Tyler.
And he's a big USC fan, which is where OJ played, obviously, got his Heisman. So you followed him from the beginning, huh?
Absolutely. When he transferred in from San Francisco City College, John McKay brought him in as our star running back, and he did a great job right there, running for SC for 2 years. Wound up with the Heisman Trophy, as you know. Come on into the Trojan room. I'll show you the Leroy Neiman serograph of a famous run by OJ in the 1967 SC UCLA City Championship game.
So do you think he did it?
I think it's most likely that he did it, but you know, he was acquitted.
Good old Johnny Cochran, huh?
We had an agreement. If he was acquitted, we would keep the Leroy Neiman in the poker room, Trojan poker room, and if he was found guilty, we would donate it to SC or sell it. They go to the gallery on La Cienega Boulevard in LA, pick it up, and while we're there, of course, the guy was there, right?
Oh, wow.
there we were, and picking up the Leroy Neiman.
Yeah. So what year was that?
This was about a year before the big event.
Oh, okay. Well,
This is his famous second run where he ran through the whole Bruin defense with a winning touchdown in the 1977 SC UCLA football game, commemorated by Leroy Neiman.
now one of his more infamous paintings. Of course, he's known for like the Rocky painting and a few others in this style.
Yeah. He's got a lot of notable paintings.
Did you get the picture of us?
We did, yeah.
Yeah, I love that Bronco. It brings back
Exactly, yeah. Finally some speed, but the Bronco is not liking speed very much. If I get on it too hard, we have that rattle. Sort of like the spark plugs are a little weak. Hopefully that's not low compression. But it's going. Now we're at 75. And we're actually checking into another very swanky old hotel, but this one's supposed to be one of the most haunted places in the world. There's the happy place. Hotel del Coronado. Built in 1888. And this, what feels like an 1888 Bronco, actually made it. No problem. How about that? Yeah, hopefully we don't see any ghosts on Halloween, and hopefully the one other person that lives here that I haven't seen in a few years doesn't ghost us. What a goofy thing that Bronco is. Well, I didn't expect this Bronco to be so flawless on this drive down. It's been wonderful, comfortable, nice, but the last thing I had to do was see what it's like to be in the back of this thing. My wife refused to drive it, so I needed a driver. Al Cowlings wasn't available, so this was the best I could do. Anyway, thank you for watching.